Greetings, I am AV and this is the fourth session of Whispercast Media. In this session, we will be reviewing another article on ASMR, focusing on various triggers and stimuli in greater detail. Come, walk with me in this small courtyard on this warm summer morning. Most of the neighbors are still sleeping, and I expect it will be just us here, accompanied only by the birds and the breeze. Focus on my voice as I tell you about an article I recently read. The article was titled Sensory Determinants of the Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response, ASMR, Understanding the Triggers. It was written by Emma L. Barrett from Seaham, Sunderland, UK, Charles Spence from the Department of Experimental Psychology, University of Oxford, Oxford, UK, and Nick J. Davis from the Department of Psychology, Manchester Metropolitan University, Manchester, UK. We have already studied another article on ASMR by two of these authors, Emma and Nick, in Whispercast Session 3. If you missed that session, there will be a link to it on your screen in the description or information section or footnotes of this session, which you can follow depending on the platform you are using to watch or listen to this session. If you ever want to view the original article or cite it, you can search for Barrett et al. 2017 Sensory Determinants of the Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response, ASMR, Understanding the Triggers, Piaget 5E3846, DOI 10.7717/Piaget 3846. I have also included these details in the description of this episode. The article was published on October 6, 2017. Let's talk about some excerpts from the abstract and introduction sections first. The authors often refer to the same article we discussed in Session 3 of Whispercast here, as they are building on their earlier work from 2015. They start by explaining that autonomous sensory meridian response, ASMR, is a unique sensory experience that causes electrostatic-like contrast, background music was found to inhibit the sensation. We already know that in ASMR sensory phenomenon, the electrostatic-like tingling begins on the scalp, travels down the spine, and in some cases extends to the arms and further limbs in response to auditory and visual triggers. This sensation is often accompanied by a feeling of relaxation, as Barrett and Davis noted in their 2015 article. ASMR can alleviate negative moods and induce sleep. Triggers can be interpersonal, like whispering and personal attention, or more abstract and non-personal, such as crisp sounds and focused tasks. It seems that no study have explored the prevalence of ASMR capability in the general population up to this date. ASMR also shares some characteristics with the state of flow. ASMR may be related to misophonia. Many individuals who suffer from misophonia also report experiencing ASMR. Research has shown that about 50% of participants who experience ASMR also experience misophonia. This suggests that ASMR and misophonia might represent opposite ends of the same spectrum. An intriguing finding is that mouth sounds, such as chewing and lip smacking, can be highly relaxing for some people, while for others, these same sounds are extremely aversive. Research into neural correlates and mechanisms of ASMR is still in early stages. Emerging studies from the time of this article publication suggest that there may be structural and functional differences between typical individuals and those capable of experiencing ASMR. For instance, one analysis of 11 individuals found evidence of decreased functional connectivity overall, but increased connectivity between regions of the occipital, frontal, and temporal cortices in those who experienced ASMR. Similarly, misophonia has been associated with abnormal resting state or functional connectivity. The current study aimed to further explore the qualities of ASMR triggering stimuli, both with and without a host, or an ASMR artist as they are called. Using an online questionnaire, the authors investigated which content most reliably triggered the ASMR sensation, along with features of the objects within ASMR content, the atmosphere and setting of the media, and other relevant factors. The questionnaire covered aspects such as timing, meaning the duration a trigger remains effective, trigger load, which is the number of effective triggers present, and gathered information on the desirable atmosphere and characteristics of ASMR content, ideal spatial distance from various stimuli, visual elements, context, and audio preferences. Volunteers were recruited through social media platforms, and participants completed the questionnaires remotely. A section of the questions focused on the physical aspects of trigger share some details about the study before we discuss the conclusions and findings. A total of 130 individuals, ranging in age from 25 to 65 years, with an average age of 35 and a standard deviation of 9.2 years, participated in the study. All participants self-reported as being able to experience ASMR. Additionally, 43% of the sample confirmed that they also experience misophonia. Analysis revealed that participants preferred triggers lasting between 1 and 5 minutes, as reported by 38% of them, or between 6 and 10 minutes, as preferred by 30%. About 15% of the sample favored the trigger duration of 11 to 20 minutes, while another 15% identified the ideal duration as 21 minutes or longer. The gathered data showed that nearly half of the responders, 47% to be more exact, considered 2 triggers to be optimal. About 24% preferred 1 trigger at a time. 15% favored 3 triggers, and 13% preferred 4 or more triggers simultaneously. Participants also ranked different atmospheres. Relaxed was the most favored descriptor, followed by inviting, happy, organized, predictable, scripted, clinical, and dangerous as the least favored. The most frequently reported issue in experiencing ASMR, noted by 27% of respondents, was what they called obviously scripted content. Auditory discomfort was also a common issue, affecting 16.5% of participants, often due to poor sound mixing that made trigger sounds too harsh. About 13% of comments mentioned that the host voice, if not conducive to relaxation, hindered their ASMR experience. Qualitative feedback suggested that sounds produced by objects in ASMR media should be realistic. Additionally, participants noted that on rare occasions, unexpected noises could provoke a particularly strong tingling sensation in them. Smaller, more detailed actions, such as origami, were found to be most effective when viewed from 60 centimeters or closer. Larger actions, which are better seen from a greater distance, were best viewed from about 60 centimeters to 1 meter away from the trigger object. Interestingly, the action of pouring liquid was rated as similarly effective up to a distance of 2 meters from the trigger, even though it involves a trigger as small and as detailed as origami. Participants most strongly indicated that sounds produced by manipulation and use of objects were an important stimulus. When asked about whether knowing more details about the scenes they were watching would increase the effectiveness of the stimuli, participants gave mixed responses. 22% strongly disagreed, 11% disagreed, 22% were neutral, 23% agreed, and 11% strongly participants also preferred binaurally recorded ASMR media, with 58% indicating that they find binaural recordings more effective, and 61% feeling that binaural recordings intensify the associated tingling sensation. When rating the statement, "I only get tingles from sounds made by objects shown on the screen," 31% of the sample agreed, while 65% disagreed. In ranking the statement, background music adds to how effective ASMR videos are at inducing tingles. 72% of the sample disagreed. Conversely, when asked if background music inhibits them from feeling strong tingles, 71% of the sample agreed to some extent. Now let us summarize what we said without all those details and numbers and reach some applicable conclusions from this article. Participants preferred ASMR content that is happy, inviting, relaxed, and free from any sense of danger, akin to an environment conducive to a flow state. Obvious scripting was found to make ASMR videos ineffective. There was a strong preference for expert use and manipulation of trigger objects over a trial and error approach. Participants did not rate their favorite ASMR content as predictable, indicating that it doesn't necessarily need to encompass all aspects of the flow state. Instead, content that is pleasant and inviting enough to facilitate relaxation was deemed sufficient. Lower-pitched sounds are more frequently associated with intense ASMR sensations. Sounds that are more complex, like resonating tones, may also be particularly appealing to viewers. While viewing small physical details of trigger objects and exploring the material is somewhat important to the ASMR experience, aspects like color and symmetry are less significant. Although visual elements can influence ASMR, they seem to be less crucial to the experience compared to effective trigger sounds. And although visual details of pouring liquid are intuitively better viewed up close, the intensity of reported tingling sensations from observing this action remains high, even at distances less suitable for fine visual details. This result is likely influenced by the confounding factor of sound, as auditory stimuli can be appreciated from further away where finer details of the object or action are no longer visible. This suggests that auditory triggers may more readily induce ASMR compared to visual triggers. Providing additional contextual information about manipulated trigger objects may enhance the ASMR experience for some viewers, but participants showed equal support for both agreeing and disagreeing with this idea. The ideal duration to focus on each trigger was rated as between 1 and 10 minutes, with around 5 to 7 minutes being most agreeable to the largest number of viewers. Sounds in ASMR content should be as realistic emphasizing fine visual details is effective, and using only a single or a couple of triggers simultaneously is often sufficient. It was a pleasure accompanying you on this walk. Thank you and farewell until the next session. Please remember to subscribe if you enjoyed this session.